My father and mother were both in the older cohorts of their family, which meant that as a child, as my aunts and uncles got married, I had a chance to go to lots of weddings. Of course, a wedding at that time, up in Okarche, here in South Oklahoma City, was at about 9 in the morning. And then following that, people would go over to the house of the bride where everybody had breakfast. And then the celebration would begin a little after everybody had lunch and would go on all afternoon and into the evening. Everybody took a little break to go home to do the chores and then come back to the dance, which started at 9 and went on probably till 2 in the morning or so. Now that was a wedding from 9 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't especially different or outrageous. It's what everybody did. That was getting married. And so, in my second year of college at Oklahoma State, when the guy next door got married, he invited me to his wedding. It was at 6 p.m. up in Bartlesville, in a little church that his parents went to. We filed in, sat down. The ceremony lasted about 15 minutes, and then we went out of the church, out the back door, over to the little parish hall where there was a cake and 6 chairs. That was everything. While I didn't have the words for it, what I noticed was they had run out of wine. Oh, it didn't have to do what they were serving, but in their hearts, in what it meant to celebrate, what it meant to begin a new life together, to turn the page and to start writing a whole new chapter. They had run out of wine a long time before that. What do you do when you run out of wine? It's a fair question because we all want our lives, our celebrations, to be filled with joy and to escape into the purpose and the journey of life. For the wine to flow at a wedding so that everyone is enlivened and the whole world looks rosy as we celebrate with this couple this whole new world that they're about to enter into. Everyone, everywhere, wants life to be like a wedding, where everyone looks to what's promised and everything lies open to joy and to harmony. One of my favorite images in all of the scriptures is from the psalmist who says, "The sun shone like the face of the bridegroom leaving the bridal tent." His face didn't shine like the sun. No, the sun shone like his face. That's what everybody wants the world to be like. Everybody wants a wedding to be like that. Everybody wants a glow on the faces of those. To celebrate and to forget the worry of the world, to get beyond the limits and to make the world glow. That's what celebration is. And that's why nobody wants to run out of wine. And when the wine runs out, the celebration stops. The boundaries close in, and the day ends before it really gets started. And everybody goes back to how it used to be. Think of what happened to all of those kids during the time of COVID when they weren't allowed to have their high school graduation. They weren't allowed, even in outside stadiums, to gather. And so all of the culmination of what they had studied and all of their energy that was supposed to come to this one point evaporated in front of them. And while there were plenty of them who shrugged their shoulders and said, oh, it never meant anything anyway, there wasn't one of them who didn't miss the experience. Everybody together, everybody who is able to say, we've passed a milestone in our lives, and it means something, at least it means something to me. And they were denied it. And then many of them went off to college, where even in college they couldn't congregate. They could call the campus police if more than like 4 people were together in the same place. It's like they had evacuated the oxygen from their lives. For them, they never ever got started. Life never really began. The wine ran out for them. Even worse for them. No cheering, no yelling, no standing, no excitement. And the worst was for the players. Imagine their lives. It's a picture, a snapshot of what everybody's life is like when there's nothing beyond the boundary. There's nothing that's glowing or rosy. There's nothing to look down the road to. So what do we do when the wine runs out? What happened with Jesus was that he got the largest jars that he could find, and he filled them. And after they had been celebrating all day, so much so that they drank everything that they could find, he made 200 gallons more wine for them. Now, it's been said even from the time of St. Augustine that water turns into wine all the time. Usually it passes through grapes first, but this was in an instant. But we forget in this exchange from water into wine that Jesus poured the water into the jars used for ceremonial Jewish washing ceremonies. The water of every day that was used to fulfill the function of honoring God and fulfilling the responsibility of God's command, it was that water that turned to wine. Inside the honoring of God and setting aside what is for God, we have the wine that we need to continue. There. Those jars that litter our life is where the wine is. We find the water of every day made into the wine of the wedding feast, first of all, in gratitude, being thankful, especially because not to be thankful is to measure and to spend our lives thinking about what we don't have. Gratitude is to be thankful, is to acknowledge that the source of all that comes to us in a world of overwhelming gratitude and overwhelming generosity, that all that comes to us comes from God's goodness to us. Make a list of what you have as if you were in a jail cell with a life sentence. Make a list of all the things in your life if you were looking out through the bars in that jail cell at what you have now. Or make a list imagining that you were a patient in a hospital with a diagnosis of something like ALS, the Lou Gehrig disease, where you know that you'll live now for the next 15 years, slowly losing every capacity that you can, by which you can exercise your will. And look at what there is for you now. Our gratitude for what fills our lives is what makes water into wine. Suddenly, the gift of God in the world becomes transformed when we begin to acknowledge that all we have comes from God's goodness. The first is gratitude. The second is generosity. To give. Surrender some time for somebody else. Choose, make a decision to give away 20 minutes to somebody. What you possess, give to them. It doesn't have to be a day, a week, a year, or a lifetime. Begin with 20 minutes to someone. Give more also than you think you can, because you can. And discover that you never miss what you give at all, whether it's time or what's in your billfold or what's on your calendar. Share yourself. Share your talent. Your talent is just you, what you are and who you are, yourself. When Father Howard Anthony, an old priest, retired, he would spend every day sitting at the desk at the pastoral center. He sat in the chair there and he read the newspaper. And to everyone who came into the pastoral center, he told them what was in the newspaper. He gave himself away. When Father Joe Kolb, an old priest, retired, twice a week he went to the kindergarten and had read stories to the kindergarten children. They called him Grandfather Joe. He just gave himself away. And love. Put yourself aside for someone else. Everything changes when we choose another over ourselves. So choose your spouse. Choose to pray. Choose to listen. Choose to help. Choose to wait. All for the good of another. Those are the jars that we fill. And when they're filled, they become transformed into the wine that sustains a life that we want to live. After all, Jesus interrupted his plans for himself to make sure the bride and the groom could continue to offer all of Cana a good day at their wedding, and because he wanted to honor his mother's request. Imagine we could bend the will of God toward more wine if we asked, if we just noticed that the wine bottle is becoming empty. What if we just asked for the wine that makes life rosy and good and worth getting through? One of my great uncles, who knew a whole lot about empty wine bottles, when he turned 75 and his wife was gone, he buried her, and in the next week, he turned his life toward helping and to distribute communion to people who were sick, which he did for the last 12 years of his life. He used to joke when he was old and bent over and could barely see through the steering wheel as he drove, that he was going to go take communion to all those old people in nursing homes. He woke up when he turned 75 and saw a life that was so much bigger and so much more grand, a life that glowed everywhere because he'd been given a chance to give his life away to those who needed him most. He had a chance to fill up all those water jars that if he just took the chance and tasted, he could see that they had saved for his life the good wine until last. If we fill up those jars that litter our lives, the wine will never run out. At Cana in Galilee, these were the first of Jesus' signs. Those signs have never stopped occurring up to today.